Hey everybody, Dr. Sean Talbott here. Welcome to another edition of Mental Fitness with Doc Talbott. Let me get my windows open and we'll get started in just a few minutes, okay? So I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna share my PowerPoint. There we go. All right, you can see the topic of today's topic. I'm gonna go get the windows open. Let's see. There's the chat. So tonight's a webinar. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat window, and I'll be able to answer those as we go through the content tonight. And all right, and I'm going to wait to start officially until the top of the hour, just so that everybody who wants to get on can get on and hear all the good stuff we're going to talk about tonight. Um, Before I do that, let everyone know that my upcoming book, this book, Wild Medicine, if you can see this, this won't be out until January, but it's on pre-order right now, and Barnes and Noble is offering a 20%, 25%, some really good deal on this today on pre-orders. So it's today and tomorrow. So it goes until what is today, the 25th? It goes until the end of the day on the 26th. So if you want to pick up a copy of this, um, and you want to save, 25%, go do that. I would love to get a pre-order, right? Pre-orders are really good for planning with bookstores and things like that. So what I'm holding in my hand is a physical copy of it. So this is what's called an ARC, an advanced reader copy. We get these usually 6 months before the book publishes. And what we do with this is we send them out to people who want to read it and then give us blurbs. So someone will read it and say like, "Oh, this is the best book ever," and this is what I loved about it. So that's why I have this. So this is an early version. You can see it's got all kinds of cool stuff in here. One of the things I love about this book, I've never done a book like this before. It's like a travel log, right? It says Wild Medicine, a field guide to natural wellness remedies from around the world. Because what I wanted to do with this is share a lot of the stories of, the places that I go and the people that I meet, and share the stories of the people who are growing some of these herbs that I talk about in the book, and how they harvest them and how they extract them and what the historical usage of it is in their culture, whether we're talking about, people in the Amazon, or, people on top of a mountain somewhere, or a desert somewhere else, or, so it's part science and like remedies, like what do I use for heart health or brain health or gut health or whatever. There's 10 chapters in here. But then it's the stories behind where these things come from. So I'm really excited to get this out, and it's on special order, save 25% at Barnes and Noble, if you go there for the pre-orders. Okay, so with that, let's get into tonight's topic. It just turned the top of the hour. So tonight we're going to talk about so this whole summer I'm doing a series called what is it called? It's called the Summer of Mental Fitness, and every Thursday is going to be a different topic about mental fitness. And tonight, the topic is why we're so tired and wired, which really is kind of like a modern epidemic right now, right? There are so many people, and I'm gonna define this more specifically, but there's so many people that are just exhausted all day long and then can't sleep at night, and that's very sort of disconcerting for a lot of people, right? Because the millions of people who are in this category that we call tired and wired, there's other names for it too, which I'll talk about when I get there. The thing that is the disconnect for them is that they wake up tired and they drag themselves through the whole day. The sort of stereotypical experiences. You snooze the alarm a couple of times and then finally you get out of bed, and then you have to drink a pot of coffee, or have some Red Bulls, or whatever your energy thing of choice is, and you do that throughout the whole day, right? It might be sort of a you're chain smoking caffeine and nicotine and sugar, all to get you through the day because you're just exhausted. And you think that at the end of the day, you should just be able to, fall asleep quickly because you've been struggling all day with this fatigue. And yet your brain starts going, and you're so wired at the end of the day that you can't relax enough to get a good night's sleep, right? So you're tired during the day, you're wired and agitated at night, and that's a cycle that repeats itself and repeats itself and repeats itself. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And importantly, we're going to understand the biology and the biochemistry underlying what I call modern exhaustion, right? That it's not just being tired, it's being tired but not being able to relax. Okay, so here's all the blah 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 about me. A lot of times, this open webinar that I do, once a week, either Wednesday nights or Thursday nights, is the first time a lot of people are you know li listening to me, hearing from me. So this is my background. I'm not going to go through all these bullet points, but you see, I put this one in red: nutritional biochemistry. That's what my PhD is in. We will talk a lot in all of these sessions, including tonight, about the food-mood connection. So nutritional biochemistry is the science of how a diet or a food or a nutrient changes your biochemistry, meaning how does it change your neurotransmitters and therefore how you feel? How does it change your stress hormones? How does it change your blood sugar levels? How does it change, et cetera, et cetera? And the reason that I highlight that biochemistry piece is that on these webinars, I really want people to understand the underlying biochemistry, because if we can understand the biochemistry, I say a lot of times biochemistry drives behavior. So the reason that you're tired is because of some biochemical imbalance. And if we can understand that biochemical imbalance, then we can do something very targeted and very precision nutrition to fix that biochemistry and solve your fatigue issue. And then, your fatigue goes away and your energy comes back. And so we can get to the biochemistry of why are you tired? Why are you wired? Why do you have brain fog? Why can you fall asleep, but you wake up during the night? All that kind of stuff. So really understanding that biochemistry gives us a lot of information about what to focus on. Otherwise, you're playing whack-a-mole, right? You're just looking at what is this symptom? Let's try to knock down that symptom. And, that's why a lot of people come to me, because they've tried X, Y, and Z, or A, B, and C, and it hasn't done what they wanted to. Like, they feel different, but they don't feel better. They don't feel good. And it's because they're not getting to the root of whatever their biochemical imbalance is. Okay. So that's the reason we talk so much about biochemistry on these calls. So we're gonna talk about the biochemistry of being tired and wired tonight. So before we get there, right, I want you to know what my bias is, right? Everybody has a bias. My bias is that biochemical bias that I just talked about. My company is called Three Waves Wellness. We were this year in 2026 voted a startup star, meaning like startup of the year kind of a thing, because we're the only company that is really doing mental fitness in a holistic way. And what I mean by that is that we focus on the biochemistry, we focus on how that biochemistry gets signaled across the gut brain axis, or what I have here, the gut immune brain axis. We'll actually talk about the immune system a little bit tonight, not too much, but a little bit. We do and we By holistic, I mean we do things like this. We hold mental fitness retreats. My wife and I, Julie, run a wellness-oriented bed and breakfast where we bring people in and we teach them how to eat. We teach them about proper sleep hygiene. We teach them about moving their body and mindfulness and meditation. And, we do all the therapies around red light and saunas and cold plunging and all that kind of stuff. So that we established the world's first mental fitness retreat to give people the experiences that they can then take home to their, regular life, and they can put into practice so that they can, not be tired and wired anymore. We train coaches. I'll talk a little bit about this certification program towards the end of the webinar tonight. We've trained about 1,000 mental wellness coaches now. We have a pretty robust mental fitness community with lots of videos and lots of special reports and lots of research analysis and things like that. And we have a small line of science-based nutraceuticals and an affiliate program. So a lot of our coaches end up building businesses around helping other people feel their best, improving their mental fitness, and part of that can be representing these products to them and getting commission. So that's all I'll say about that. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to threewaveswellness.com and see all the details there. So I will mention this again at the very, very beginning. One of my missions is to get as much of this kind of information that I talk about out to as many people as possible for free. That's one of the reasons that I do this webinar every week, is to get as many people sort of clued in and aware of the fact that your biochemistry drives your behavior. And if we can rebalance that biochemistry, we can change or improve or level up your behavior, your performance, your level of sort of wherever you want to go. Here are two books that are in that lane, so to speak. One of them is about ancient remedies for modern performance. These are things like nootropics, which are natural brain boosters, adaptogens, which are herbs that help your body adapt to stress better, and psychobiotics, which are specific kinds of biotics, typically probiotics, right? Bacteria, but also prebiotics, also postbiotics that have a psychological effect. They help you feel better. So this ebook is free. It's all about those sorts of things. It gives you some, tips about what to look for when you're going out there and looking for, your saffron or your cordyceps or your tonganola or, whatever it is that you're looking at. What strains of bacteria lower stress or improve your mood or lower your anxiety or whatever. So it's a very good manual to help you choose the right kinds of natural performance enhancers out there. And then this book I wrote about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. I gave a keynote talk at a big nutrition conference, and I talked about peptides. And peptides are a really hot but also confusing area in the wellness space right now. So this book is, I'm not pro peptide or anti peptide. This book is really to help you sort of navigate where's the hype, where's the promise, if you're using peptides, how to use them better. If you're considering peptides, but you are maybe a little bit scared of, doing an injection or something like that, what could be a natural alternative? So, it's sort of like a middle of the road to help you navigate that. And you can see the links here. DocTalbott.com/level up will get you this ancient remedies book. DocTalbott.com/peptide will get you the peptides book. So go get both of them if you want to. They're great resources. Okay, so let's dive into Tired and Wired. So I want to start off with a little informal poll, which is how many of these bullet points describe you or describe someone that you know with, right? It could be the, asking for a friend kind of a thing. You're exhausted, but you can't sleep. That's what I just described. Like the sort of stereotypical tired, wired person is tired all day, but then can't relax enough to get a good night's sleep. Or we'll talk about the biochemistry of that in just a second. You need caffeine or sugar to function. You have brain fog. I joke about this a lot, is that a lot of the people that I work with don't know they have brain fog until it goes away. And once we do an intervention and their brain fog lifts, and that usually takes a week or two, depending on how foggy you are. But once the brain fog goes away, people will come back and go, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea that I even had brain fog until it was gone, and now I can think more clearly. I'm more creative. I'm solving problems. I'm remembering, all that kind of stuff." But we kind of, when we're in that situation, we kind of adapt to that situation, and it feels like our normal. And that normal is just like a level down. So a lot of times when I say level up, it's about you going back to what your normal level of function is, and you've been like geared down because of these biochemical disruptions. You might just have low motivation, which is a little bit different than fatigue. So when we measure these psychological mood states in clinical trials, we measure fatigue separate from motivation. And so, you can have an intervention where the fatigue goes down, or, said the other way, the energy goes up, and motivation doesn't change at all. And so that's interesting because the way that we measure those kinds of things, motivation is almost like, another way that I like to describe it is that it's actionable energy, meaning if your motivation is high, you feel like getting something done. You feel like getting into action, right? You feel like getting off your butt and going for a walk. You feel like getting off your butt and doing some yard work or gardening or, whatever. Like it's this very sort of like, you want to do something, whereas energy is just like you feel energetic. You feel uh, yeah, that's I guess the way we can say it. So sometimes we'll see, depending on the intervention, one of those will change or the other one will. Ideally, you want to see them both go in the right direction, but they're actually different things. And this is one of the reasons. One of the things that I try to tell my coaches is that when they're talking to their clients, we need to keep asking questions, asking questions, asking questions, because what we want the client to do is get as precise and as granular in how they describe how they're feeling because of reasons like that, right? Because energy is different than motivation. And the more that we listen to them, the more that we have them talk it through, the more information we're getting about what they're experiencing. It doesn't help us as coaches for a client to say, I feel tired. Because that tired could be tired. It could be lack of energy. It could be lack of motivation. It could be that their mood is low, right? A lot of times when people are feeling kind of depressed, they'll say they're tired. So like, getting them to use as many different ways of describing it, or, give us a scenario, right? All right, you're tired. Are you tired in the morning when you get out of bed? Are you tired in the afternoon and you're talking about like a little slump that you're getting? Are you tired, so are you tired at the end of the day because you've been physically and mentally active all day long, right? The more they can describe it in the more different ways, the more information that we get, and that information helps us sort of figure out what their primary limiter is, which I talked about last week, and I'll talk about a little bit again tonight. So low motivation, feeling overwhelmed, and you can see I put this one in blue. This I think is another way that people describe tired and wired. And I'm seeing this word kind of pop, in articles that I'm reading, in social media posts that I'm seeing, really with like I hate to say it this way, like the younger generation, like people who are my kids' age, which is like mid 20s, will talk about overwhelm. And that is their way of saying, you know what, I just I just can't even, right? It's just too much, right? There's too much input. I'm not able to digest all this input that's coming in. It's wearing me down. It's like my nervous system can't handle it. They just feel like, and it's not only that there's a lot of stuff coming at us. You can have a lot of stuff coming at you, and if your resilience is high, what we call adaptive capacity, you can deal with that all day long, right? When we describe resilience, it's this idea of if your resilience is low, you can have a stressful thing happen to you, and you will actually literally want to back away from it, right? You'll go, that's awful. I can't deal with this right now, right? That's being overwhelmed. But if your resilience is high, that exact same thing can happen, and you'll look at it and go, well, this is still a terrible situation, but we're going to figure it out. And you can step into it and, kick butt and take names, right? You can step into it and solve the problem. You can step into it and come up with a creative solution, versus stepping away, right? That's the difference between high resilience or high adaptive capacity and low, or what I have here, feeling overwhelmed. And then, the classic one is that you slept all night, right? You went to bed at 10 and you woke up at 6. So you got 8 hours of sleep, but you woke up and you're still tired. So is that a sleep problem? Is that a stress problem? Is that what? We're gonna try to unpack that. I'm actually gonna use sleep and waking up tired as an example of how we sort of dissect this, whether it's for ourselves or for someone that we're working with. Okay, so I can't see you who is watching right now, so I didn't see how many people put their hands up, but I think that there's a lot of people. Like when I used to do kind of pre-COVID, when I did a lot of these things in person, I would fly around the country and I would do a lot of these in-person, seminars. And you could see people going like, "Yep, I've got that, and I've got that one too, and I've got that one too." And you could see people kind of counting them up, and it was almost like you were waiting for somebody to jump up out of their seat and say, "Bingo!" Because I have them all. Because you see that kind of thing all the time too. It's not typically just one thing for a lot of people. It's many of them, right? You'll come and you'll see people have brain fog and low motivation, and they're overwhelmed, and they wake up tired every day. And that is no way to go through life. And sometimes when people are in that situation, I mentioned just a few minutes ago that people adapt to that and they go, well, I guess this is just how it is, right? I guess this is just how I'm going to feel. You kind of accept the fact that you're in that situation and you don't know that it's quite possible to get out of that situation, right? So when people hear me talk, sometimes they go, "Oh, that guy doesn't get it." Right? He doesn't understand how much stress I have in my life, or that I'm burning the candle at both ends, or my family, or my this, or my that, right? I do. I totally understand it. I've been studying this for 30 years, right? I've seen all the different flavors of it. And I'm here to tell you that we can get you out of that situation and into the opposite situation, which is what we call psychological vigor, which is physical energy all day long, mental acuity whenever you want it, meaning you're sharp and creative and problem solving and all that kind of stuff, and emotional well-being. So you feel good, you're performing at a high level, and you have energy to burn, so to speak, right? And that sounds very kind of pie in the sky, very like, utopian world kind of a thing, but that's exactly what's possible when we understand the biochemistry and get that biochemistry back into balance. Okay? So here's the modern paradox that we're living in right now. We've got more convenience, more technology, more productivity tools. Everybody has access to AI engines now, and that should be making us all, low stress, easy life. We can just sort of cruise through the day, and we have all these modern conveniences. And now you're starting to see all these studies come out saying, wait a minute, this is actually giving us more fatigue and more anxiety and more stress and more overwhelm and more burnout and more sleep problems. And why is that? Right? I'll just put it out there to you guys. If anybody wants to, put your answers into the chat, I'm happy to look at them. Why is that? That, like, you look at the world today, and it should be smooth sailing for everybody, right? We've got all these modern conveniences, and yet we're having like this psychological toll in all these ways. And it really is, right? Partly it's biochemistry, right? Of course, I want to say biochemistry, but partly it's that your nervous system isn't designed for that constant input. Our ability to not just be resilient in the face of that input, but to be able to adapt and sort of absorb that input and then come back even stronger is very depleted. Part of that is because of inflammation. Part of that is because of the foods that we're surrounded by, processed foods and things like that. I just posted on a lot of my social media channels two new studies that came out just in the last couple of weeks. One about the Mediterranean diet and how it influences your microbiome, and another about ultra processed foods and how the two of those um, impact your microbiome and then impact your brain. And so what it was basically like you guys can go read my blog and see the whole detailed analysis, or you can go dig up one of those videos that I posted, and you can see that if you're eating, modern foods, it's changing our microbiome, and that's sending a signal to our brain that is actually increasing our risk for dementia. So it is a real biological, biochemical, and then biological change in our bodies because our biochemistry physiology isn't sort of matched. It is mismatched to what the modern world looks like. Okay, that's the big problem. So if we were to define tired and wired specifically, this is how we do it. Tired means depleted energy systems, and wired means activated stress systems. So the thing about those is that you can have them both simultaneously. And so that's the tired wired person, right? That's the person who, that I just described. And this is a biochemical change. It's an adaptation, but it's a maladaptation, right? So it's an adaptation that takes us in the wrong direction. Typically, we want an adaptation that helps us bounce back from that stress or adapt to that stress so we can withstand more stress. So I'll use this as an example, right? You go to the gym to get stronger, and you pick up a dumbbell and you do barbell curls, and that stress on that muscle because of that weight stimulates the muscle to come back stronger. But what if instead of picking up a 10-pound weight, you picked up a 1,000-pound weight? That would be too much stress. That would damage the tissue. What if you picked up a feather and you did curls with a feather? That's not going to be enough stress. We've done a whole seminar about the balance between not enough stress, too much stress, the right amount of stress, the Goldilocks approach. This maladaptation is an adaptation in the wrong direction versus an adaptation that helps you handle stress better. And this is not a flaw. This is something that is just this is how the body works. One of the biggest obstacles that I typically have to get my coaches and their clients and my own clients over is somebody feeling like they're weak, or they don't have enough willpower, or they're somehow like they have a problem because they're not handling the stress in the world, as well as what they see on Facebook or Instagram or their perfect neighbor or something like that, right? It's not a flaw in any way. It's just, is your biochemistry adapting in the right way or the wrong way? And there's ways we can figure that out and determine which part of your biochemistry, and then focus on that, and then get things going back in the sort of positive adaptation direction. Okay, so those are some of the things we're going to talk about tonight. Here's one way of looking at this, right? And I'm going to give you examples tonight of let me see. We're going to talk about stress and cortisol. We're going to talk about sleep. We're going to talk about blood sugar metabolism. We're going to talk about inflammation. Those are the examples I'm going to give you tonight. But we're going to start off with this cortisol one because it's very visual to show you on a graph, right? The tired, wired dysfunction. So here's your cortisol levels, right? And I'll just orient you to what this graph is showing. The left-hand side is the morning, right? The early part of the day. The right-hand side is the night, the later part of the day. And a normal cortisol rhythm should look like this green line. High cortisol in the morning helps get us up, helps get, cortisol is the fight or flight hormone. Well, one of the fight or flight hormones. And you want it to be high in the morning to get you ready to face the stresses of the day, but you also want it to sort of dissipate throughout the day. So it gets lower in the midday, it gets lower in the evening, it reaches its lowest point in the middle of the night when we should be sound asleep, recovering, repairing, rebuilding, doing all the things that we need to do overnight, so that and then it repeats. It rises again in the morning to help get you up and get you ready for the day, and then that's a normal cortisol rhythm. If you have that rhythm, you're energetic in the morning and throughout the day, and you're relaxed in the evening. When this is flip-flopped, when it's low in the morning instead of high, and it's high in the evening instead of low, that's tired and wired. You don't have enough of that cortisol signal for you to face the stress of the day, so you're just sort of dragging your way through. You feel suppressed, you feel unmotivated, unenergetic, just kind of blah, mentally and physically. And then in the evening, it's high, your cortisol is high, and that is setting off alarm bells. It's setting off a fight or flight response, and that's causing you to not be able to dial things down. So it's not just a brain thing, it's a whole body alarm. So your whole nervous system, your whole endocrine system is on alert, as if there was a lion sitting right next to your bed ready to eat you as soon as you close your eyes, right? So of course you're not going to relax. So that's tired and wired. We will see people sometimes with a cortisol level that is high all the time. This is wired. And we'll see somebody with a cortisol level low all the time. This is tired. And so a lot of times I meant to bring one down with me. I don't think I have one on the desk right now. Sometimes I'll send these little swabs, these little saliva swabs to people, and I'll say, here's 4 swabs. Take one saliva swab in the morning, first thing when you get up. Do another one, 2 or 3 hours later. Do another one, midday. Do another one right before you go to bed. And what we're trying to do is get a curve of your cortisol, and that will give us an idea of, do you have a normal level? Okay, cortisol is not your issue. Let's look at something else that is your issue. But if we see this low and then high, we see this tired wired, then we go, Eureka! That's something that we can focus on, or we see that it's wired, or we see that it's tired. We can see that, and there's another one that's not on here, which is medium. It's somebody who is they're sort of like, if you can see my cursor, they're in the middle in the morning, and they're in the middle in the afternoon, and they're in the middle in the evening, right? That person usually presents as tired wired. They don't necessarily have to have low and then high, but if you look at the way we measure it is something called area under the curve. If you look at somebody who has medium all the time, then they're not having that rhythmicity. So they're still tired during the day and they're still wired at night because cortisol is not high enough in the day and it's not low enough in the evening. So that's one way that we can sort of use a biochemical measurement to get to the biochemical balance question. And then if that's the one that we see is out of balance, then we can say, okay, our first thing that we're going to focus on is going to be a cortisol rhythm. And we're going to do we're going to do an intervention that helps you restore that cortisol rhythm, and that should you know change this and this and this and this. Sometimes we'll measure blood sugar. Sometimes we'll measure inflammatory cytokines. Sometimes we'll measure neurotransmitters. Sometimes we'll measure the microbiome. But that is not the first place that I start. The first place that I start is where we were just a couple of slides ago, saying to people, "How do you feel? What are your symptoms? Are you tired in the morning? Are you agitated at night? Do you feel overwhelmed? Those sorts of things. Because sometimes that can give you the same kind of information that an expensive biochemistry test is, right? I don't want to force people into spending thousands of dollars in biochemical testing if we can get to the same answer with questionnaires and things like that. So what we're trying to do is look at these guys on the outside, these bubbles on the outside. These are the super seven that we really focused on for an hour last week. So I'm not going to talk about those, anymore, except to remind you of them, that those are the seven sort of um, critical pillars, if you will, that both influence adaptive capacity and are influenced by adaptive capacity. And so last week we really dove into the biochemistry of these super seven. If you missed last week, you can go to YouTube and you can watch you can watch the replay. If you're in our mental fitness community, it's posted in the mental fitness community along with the slides, so you have access to all of that. We talked about neurotransmitters and inflammation and stress hormones and metabolic pathways. We talked about signaling across the gut-brain axis. So all of that detailed discussion is there. Um, where to start with a lot of people is just to give a quick little quiz. So this is a free quiz. This is my mental fitness quiz. So if you go to doctalbott.com/quiz, it will bounce you right over to the page where you start. And this quiz, it takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes to go through and answer the questions. It's based on some of the very top, most well-researched psychological surveys that are out there. Things like the SF-36, the DAS-21, the PALMS, a number of different ones that are out there, right? So what we did was we, kind of mushed them all together and picked all the questions that were most oriented towards mental fitness. And when you take this quiz, you get a free report back that tells you where you're strong, where you're moderate, where you're weak. And this sometimes is very instructive to say to somebody who just goes, I feel tired, right? I feel crummy all the time. Where should I start? This will give you an idea of where to start, right? It'll show you where your sort of lowest domain is, and that's information, right? That's information where you can go, well, I'm doing okay on this one, but this one I really seem weak in. Let me focus on that right now, okay? And it gives you some pointers of where to focus. If I'm on a call with somebody, right? If I have somebody that I'm working with one-on-one, I'll talk about that a little bit later. I might go through these and just say to them like really quickly, on a scale of 1 to 10 or 0 to 10, how's your mood, right? How positive are you feeling? How negative are you feeling? What's your motivation like? How driven and engaged and likely you are to get into action, like I was describing before. What's your energy like? What's your focus like? What's your resilience like? What's your sleep like? So, I'll dive into these sorts of areas and try to just with a conversation, try to figure out which of these is really the thing that is underlined and highlighted an exclamation point for that individual. It's never all of them, right? They might think it's all of them, but when you actually talk to them and when you ask them questions and say, "Well, tell me more about that." Well, tell me more about that. You can kind of rule a bunch of them out. So you can say, well, for this person, it's not mood, it's not focus, but maybe it's sleep. Maybe that's the thing that pops for this individual person. And then yeah, I mean, it's a partnership, right? It's not just you as the coach saying like, this is what I think it is for you. It's sort of a back and forth partnership. Like, let's figure this out together so we know which one we should focus on. It doesn't do anybody any good to try to focus on all of them simultaneously. You have to figure out what is the one primary limiter, or maybe two, and focus there first, because then you can gain some traction. And like I talked about last week, once you start gaining positive traction on that one pillar, then the next one becomes easier to solve, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And so, for some people, this might be a 1 month intervention. It might be a 3 month intervention. It might be a year-long intervention to get them to where they really want to go. And one of the coolest things, I'll share this with you guys. Probably the coolest thing about working with people, either one-on-one or in group settings, is that once they get a little bit better, they want to get more better. And that's something that they don't even know at the very beginning of you working with them. So they'll think like, oh, if I could just solve this sleep problem, that would be great, right? I'd be perfect if I could just solve that sleep problem. But you solve that sleep problem for them, and then they're feeling better, and then it uncovers. It's almost like peeling that onion kind of an idea. Now they realize, wait a minute, now I have a brain fog issue that I didn't even know was there. Okay, let's solve that. Okay, and then you solve that, and they go, I have this motivation issue. If we could just get a little more motivated, right? So you can see, like when I say that people get better and better and better, that's what I mean. They're getting better and better and better, but the first better is one category of things, and the next better is another category of things, and the next better is another category of things, and they just start getting better and better and better, and finally they reach this new normal where they've completely leveled up their mental and physical performance. And they look back and they go, oh my gosh, look what a disaster I was back there. But they didn't feel like a disaster back there. They felt just kind of blah. But now that they've leveled up, gone to this new level of performance, they look back and they go, wow, okay, what else is possible, right? Instead of looking back, let's look forward. Where else can I go from here? And there's nothing cooler than that to help somebody keep going and going and going into those different realms. Okay, so primary limiter. Most people think that they have 10 problems, like I was just alluding to, but it's usually just one or two that is causing a bottleneck. And if you can solve that bottleneck problem, then then literally the floodgates open, and they start getting better, in all those different ways. And you just have to figure it out together. And you can sometimes pick the wrong thing, and sometimes that happens. I might work with somebody for a month and go, you know, we're not making a lot of progress here. Maybe we miscalculated. Maybe we picked the wrong target. Sometimes at that point, if we're doing something and it should be working and it's not working, then that's when sometimes I bring in some of the biochemical testing, right? Then we might say, all right, I'm going to send you a kit and you collect your saliva, or I'm going to send you a different kit and you're gonna pee on these test strips or something like that, right? Depending on what we're trying to measure biochemically. But it's that partnership of trying to be a like a team of detectives. So let me give you some more concrete examples, right? So we're going to do sleep, stress and cortisol, blood sugar and metabolism, and then inflammation, and then we'll start wrapping things up. Okay, so sleep. This is excuse me. This is not always the first thing, but it is often the first thing that I will try to address with somebody. And there's a few reasons for that. One of the reasons is that sleep problems are literally an epidemic in the world right now. I don't really find a lot of people, excuse me, who are sleeping the way that they want to sleep. Lots of reasons for that, right? Nervous system overload, like we talked about before, cortisol too high, inflammation, blood sugar, whole bunch of different things. So when I talk about sleep, and I'll say this, if somebody has a sleep problem, like 80% of the people out there do, if you can help them solve their sleep problem, it will pay huge, huge dividends. Um, so I'll give an example from my previous life as a sport nutritionist. If we could solve sleep problems for athletes, it would make like all the difference. We could have athletes that are getting sick all the time. We get them to sleep better, they don't get sick anymore. We could have athletes that are getting hurt all the time, tendinitises and things like that, or they have injuries that just won't heal, like nagging, chronic, recurrent kind of injuries. We get them to sleep better, they don't get hurt. Their injuries repair faster. Um, they bounce back from hard workouts better. Like sleep is a if you can solve it, if you can get somebody to have good sleep, it becomes their new superpower, right? It is an underappreciated performance enhancer. And for any kind of performance, right? So if somebody has even just a little bit of a sleep dysfunction and we can solve the sleep issue, it pays huge dividends across the entire adaptive capacity circle of pillars. Um, but what kind of sleep problem is the important question. It's not just that your sleep is bad, it's how is it bad or how can it be improved. So if you have trouble falling asleep, that's almost always a GABA issue. GABA is your body's primary relaxing neurotransmitter. And if your body is not producing the right amount of GABA at the right time, you cannot relax and wind down and get ready to sleep. If you took a big like you can take GABA as a synthetic chemical. You can get a supplement and take a GABA and you take a big dose of it. It's going to put you to sleep. That isn't really what it's for. It's to de-stress you so you can fall asleep. I hate to see people take GABA to put themselves to sleep. Just the same way I hate to see people take melatonin to put themselves to sleep. They don't work particularly well when they're used in those ways. Like they're actually neurochemicals for other reasons. So GABA helps you relax. So if you have trouble falling asleep, it's usually a GABA issue. We can naturally get your body to make more GABA. So you make it on demand in the right amount when you need it. And that's what we would do in this situation. Trouble staying asleep. This can be a cortisol issue. So sometimes you will fall asleep, but then you'll wake up during the night. And that could be a cortisol issue, could also be a blood sugar issue, which is the thing I'm going to talk about next. But cortisol, if that goes up, remember that's an alarm bell to your brain, and that's gonna wake you up. Sometimes you have a drop in glucose overnight. That will cause you to wake up at like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And that could be, and the experience that somebody has is that they wake up, like they've fallen asleep, and now at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, they wake up and they go, huh, why am I awake? Um, did I hear something? Did the dog make a noise? Did the kids make a noise? Did I hear a bump in the night? Well, what? A lot of times you don't know. But it's very often it's that your blood sugar has dropped. You've had this little dip in blood sugar, hypoglycemia, what we call nocturnal hypoglycemia, where your blood sugar drops just a little bit. When your blood sugar drops a little bit like that, that in and of itself can wake you up, and or that blood sugar drop can stimulate a stress response. So now your cortisol goes up. And one of the effects of cortisol is to tell your liver to squirt out more glucose into the bloodstream, more blood sugar, right? Blood sugar has gone down. Your brain senses that, tells your adrenal glands to make cortisol. Cortisol, jumps your blood sugar back up to where it should be. So your glucose has dropped, wakes you up. Cortisol has spiked, wakes you up in a different way, and now you have really bad time going back to sleep because now you've been woken up with two biochemicals. So there's ways that we can keep your cortisol from spiking overnight, and there's ways we can keep your glucose from dropping overnight. And then the last one is melatonin. This is the person who they fall asleep fine, they don't wake up during the night, they stay asleep, everything is hunky dory, their alarm goes off in the morning, and they roll over and they feel like they've been hit by a bus, right? They've been in bed for 8 hours and they don't feel restored. And that's usually a sleep quality problem. So you might have been asleep for 8 hours. Well, first of all, you might have been in bed for 8 hours, but only asleep for a short amount of that time. So that would be poor sleep efficiency. Or you were asleep for that whole time, and you didn't have good sleep quality, meaning you didn't spend time in REM where your brain recovers, you didn't spend time and cleans itself, and you didn't spend enough time in deep sleep where your body recovers and repairs and rejuvenates, right? So it could be either of those. And so people say will experience this and they'll go, oh, I just need to start taking 3 milligrams of melatonin every night. Well, that might improve your sleep. It might improve the amount of time you're asleep, but it doesn't really improve your sleep quality because it's not a naturalistic dosing of melatonin. How about instead we teach your body to make the right amount of melatonin at the right time? So we can, this is why it's important to understand the biochemistry. We can pick any one of these to improve, or we can improve all of them depending on what that individual person needs, right? We can focus on get your body to make more melatonin naturally, get your body to make more GABA naturally, get your body to not spike cortisol or not drop glucose. We can fix any of those or all of those depending on what the situation is, okay? And when you can solve that and somebody strings together a few nights of good sleep, you know it, they know it. Their energy is better, their motivation is better, their mood is better, their appetite is better. They're not sort of, rummaging around for potato chips and gummy bears and cookies and things like that. Everything changes. Sleep is as important. In fact, during this summer of mental fitness series that we're doing for the next month and a half, we're going to do a whole module on just sleep quality, right? So we'll do a whole hour on just unpacking all this sleep. But once you solve this, it like I said before, it becomes a superpower. It's as important as your physical activity regimen. It's as important as eating the Mediterranean diet versus ultra processed foods. So anyway, there's a few things in the chat that I'm gonna try to address right now. So let me go in here and see. I think my husband had his first ever visual migraine with aura today. Ooh, yike. All because of sleep deprivation. He's been getting less than 5 hours each night because he gets up at 3 a.m. to work in the garage, project truck he's trying to flip, and work out before actual work. 2 months straight like this, and now it's finally catching up with him. Yeah, so this is an example of burning the candle at both ends, right? So if this were an athlete, we would say that this athlete is overtrained. And as a result of that, that cortisol overexposure is causing them to have trouble with their sleep cycles. And then somebody else says that they can relate to it. Her husband's been getting up at work at 1 a.m. to be at work at 2 a.m. I was having trouble falling asleep for years and years, and then after he left, I couldn't fall back asleep for a few hours. Sleep has been crazy, so I get exactly where you are coming from. Sleep is so important. Yeah, exactly. So all these different ways. If you can solve the sleep problem for people, so if you can solve the sleep problem, then the next day their blood sugar is better, then their inflammation is lower, and their cortisol is lower. It's like a biochemical dominoes game, and that's one of the reasons that sleep really is one of those one of the big three pillars: good sleep, good physical activity, good dietary intake, right? Those are the three big ones. Okay, stress and cortisol. We talked about cortisol a little bit in relation to sleep, but how about just on its own, right? What does your stress input look like? What are the things that are causing you to be stressed out all day? So I'll ask people, when life gets stressful, what happens? Like, what is your stress experience? Different people will internalize or respond to stress completely differently. And what stresses me out might be completely different than what stresses you out. So that's an important consideration as well. So when you're under stress, do you feel anxious? Do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel exhausted? Do you feel irritable? Some people will, in response to stress, they'll get irritable and angry. They'll want to act out. Other people will want to shut down. Some people, when they're stressed out, will get stress eating, where they'll devour a bag of chips as soon as they come through the door. Or they will, eat a whole plate of cookies instead of just one cookie, right? So stress eating. Other people get stress non-eating, right? Well, stress will take away their appetite. So they're stressed out and they don't feel hungry for anything. So like completely opposite effects but due to the same biochemistry. So, that's something that we have to talk to people about. What is their experience of that stressful situation? And the more we can understand that, the more we can figure out like, oh, is this something that we need to lower, or is this something that we need to raise? And that sounds weird, right? Why would you need to raise somebody's cortisol? Isn't cortisol this toxic hormone that we want to eradicate from our bodies? No. Remember the graph that I showed you just a few slides ago? We want high cortisol sometimes, and we want low cortisol at other times. So a lot of times when I'm talking about cortisol, I will say lower cortisol, but in reality, what we're trying to do is restore that rhythm so that, your cortisol exposure over a 24-hour period actually is lower, but it's because you're getting high when you need it and low when you need it instead of medium, like I described before. Okay, so stress and cortisol is an important consideration. How somebody sort of experiences a stressful situation. Blood sugar and metabolism. So this is one that we don't talk about a lot, and I think we should talk about it more. When I wrote this book, this one, this came out probably a dozen years ago, The Secret of Vigor. The idea here was to describe that psychological mood state, vigor. So, vigor, three-tiered mood state, physical energy, emotional acuity, physical energy, mental acuity, emotional well-being, right? All wrapped up into one is vigor. So, vigor is like motivation. People with vigor have good mood. People with vigor have good energy. People with vigor have good mental focus. People with vigor have good resilience and adaptive capacity. The idea of how do you go from burnout, which is the lack of vigor, to vigor is by balancing your biochemistry. And in this book, 12 years ago, and this holds true today, it is manage your cortisol, manage your inflammation, which we're going to talk about on the next slide, um, manage your inflammation, and manage your oxidation. And I don't talk about oxidation as much anymore because inflammation and oxidation are kind of like two sides of the same coin. A dozen years ago, we really looked at them sort of separately, but now what we realize is that they're different biochemical events, but they're so related to each other. It doesn't really matter if you have one first and then the other one, because if you have one, you're going to get the other one. And it's really about cellular repair and cellular resilience and things like that. So blood sugar is really, really important. So I'll ask this question to get an idea of instead of measuring somebody's blood sugar. If we do measure someone's blood sugar, we'll just send them a little card and they do a finger pick. It comes with a little lancet. They do a stab on their finger. They put drops of blood on this little card. They send the dried blood into the laboratory. We can tell what their blood sugar metabolism looks like. But before we do that, we'll just ask a simple question. What happens if you skip breakfast or you miss a lunch? Are you fine? Like, can you just get by with that? That would be somebody with good metabolic flexibility. Maybe you become shaky. Maybe you become irritable. Maybe you crave sugar. Maybe you become a raving lunatic, right? You've all probably seen the Snicker bar commercials, right? Where people are, you know, they're, they if they don't get to eat something, they become a diva, which are kind of funny, but it's funny because it's true, right? We've all been there before. So this gives us an idea of what their ability to shift from. If their blood sugar is well controlled in their body, that's going to change their mood. It's going to change their sleep quality. It's going to change their stress response. If it's poorly controlled, that can change how you feel. It can change your performance. It can change how your brain functions. So this will give us an idea of, are you resilient in the face of blood sugar changes, or are you not? And is that something we need to focus on? And one of the things we'll focus on here is very often is a dietary intervention. It's going to be getting more fiber, getting more protein, making sure that you're not eating carbohydrates in isolation, that you're always balancing them with fat, fiber, protein, that kind of stuff. So that can be very it can be very instructive. I'll share one thing. We'll talk about this when we have this when we have the whole module on sleep. But a lot of times we will try to proactively manage blood sugar so that they don't have a sleep problem, right? So they might be having a sleep problem, but it's because of blood sugar issues. And if we can address blood sugar with the right dietary intervention, then then we solve their daytime blood sugar metabolism issues, but we also solve their nighttime ones. And that is a great virtuous cycle to get into because if you have blood sugar problems overnight, that's going to lead to problems the next day. That's going to lead to more problems at night, the next day. Like that's a vicious cycle to get into. And if we can solve them both simultaneously, then you end up having good sleep and a good day, all because you've managed the blood sugar fluctuation. So we'll talk about that when we get to that module. And then I'll also follow up with this. Do you notice any relationship between food and how you feel mentally? Um, you know, throw out different kinds of food. Like, how do you feel after you go to a fast food restaurant? How do you feel after you have a bowl of pasta? How do you feel after you eat a steak? How do you feel after you eat a salad? How do you feel, do you have any food intolerances? Do you have any food allergies? Asking people about what their experiences are with food, sometimes that will give you a little bit of clue into, oh, this person doesn't do well with dairy. This person doesn't do well with gluten. This person doesn't do well with a carb heavy meal. Or you can ask about, what would be your preferred breakfast? Like if you ate an omelet for breakfast versus if you ate a bowl of cereal. What would your experience be after breakfast up to lunch? Some people will eat a nice healthy breakfast and then they'll be starving before lunchtime. And then they eat something that would be considered like you might eat a bagel, for breakfast. But then you're starving before lunch, and then they eat two eggs for breakfast, and they're fine. They don't even think about food until dinner time, right? So that tells you a little bit about how they're handling carbohydrates versus proteins, and that can give you some information about what you might want to focus on. So let me see if there's anything else in the chat. Um, just a couple of comments. So this book that I just mentioned a few minutes ago is called The Secret of Vigor. Um, and you can find this anywhere, Amazon and Barnes and Noble and stuff like that. The book I talked about at the very beginning that's coming out is called Wild Medicine. Um, so any of those, if you go type Sean Talbott Amazon, you'll get my Amazon author page and you'll be able to see all the different books. Um, and don't forget about the free ebooks on DocTalbott.com. And then inflammation. I'll talk about inflammation a little bit. I've mentioned it a couple of times as we've been going through. So with inflammation, one of the questions that I really like to ask people is, when do you feel your worst? So if you could pick like the worst time of day for you, when you're feeling achy, when you're feeling old, when you're feeling brain fog, when you're feeling depressed, when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling agitated, would you say it's the morning, the afternoon, after meals, after workouts? This will give you some information about how their inflammatory balance is going. So when we measure inflammation, sometimes we'll measure it in the saliva, sometimes we measure it in the urine. Sometimes we measure it with a finger stick sort of a thing. We measure something. If we measure finger stick, we measure something called HSCRP, highly sensitive C-reactive peptide. It's sort of an overall marker of inflammation. And the reason inflammation is important to measure is that it's like any of these biochemicals, right? It's the Goldilocks response, right? We don't want too little, we don't want too much, we want just right. We want sort of a balanced level of inflammation. When we measure just an HSCRP in a finger stick, we're getting a kind of a global marker of, is your inflammation high or low? Sometimes that will be what we need to understand. Sometimes we'll measure it in a saliva sample because we'll be looking at different inflammatory markers called cytokines. Some are inflammatory, some are anti-inflammatory. And so that will give us a little more nuance into, is this person inflamed and they're able to balance that inflammation, right? So it's that, kind of it's not the same kind of rhythm as cortisol, but it gives you an idea of like that inflammatory balance. This asking about the timing will let you know that if someone is overinflamed and they're chronically overinflamed, right? It's inflammation that's been up and has stayed up for a while. That's not just a body problem. That can also be a brain problem, right? What we call neuroinflammation. That is a hallmark that leads to people being more depressed and more anxious and more brain fog is because your brain is inflamed. So, it's important to get a perspective for what's driving that inflammation. If it's after workouts, maybe you're working out too hard or too much. Or you're not recovering from that workout. So, whether you're an athlete or not, if you're feeling like if you're feeling I'll just say depleted after your workouts instead of energized after your workouts, that might be a problem. We might want to look at that and have an intervention there. If you're feeling bad after your meals, like some people, this is very very classic to see. You won't have much of a breakfast, you won't have much of a lunch. You'll sort of graze or snack, and then you have a big meal, a big dinner, and you feel kind of bloated and lethargic and maybe a little irritable at the end of the day. That's partly a blood sugar thing, but it's partly also an inflammation thing. So for that person, the solution might be instead of backloading all your calories, like having a big dinner, maybe we can pull some of those calories earlier and really make that person eat a breakfast. Or if they're an intermittent faster, we can say, let's spread those dinner calories from noon until 8 p.m. So instead of you having all of those calories at, 6 or 7, let's see if we can pull some of them into the early afternoon. Okay. So those are, those are some questions you can ask about inflammation before we delve into some of the testing. Okay, so at the end of last week's webinar, I went through these different levels of support through my like level up program. And I get a lot of questions about like, well, how much does that one cost? And how much does that one cost? So what I went through, I had a different slide for each one of these, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. When I'm working with people, whether in a group setting, in a classroom setting, in a one-on-one setting, it's a different level of interaction. And so there's different pricing that goes with this. People were very curious about that. So I'm actually just gonna tell you what I charge people when we work with each one of these. So level 1 is awareness. It's really about education. It's this kind of stuff that I do on a routine basis. This is for people who are learning and exploring. And this is a lot of people, which is awesome. I love the fact that there's so many nerds out there that like want to understand the biochemistry like I want them to. This is when you go to my website. This is when you go to doctalbott.com and you sign up for the newsletter and you see the mental fitness webinars. And there's hundreds of them across YouTube now. This is where you get the ebooks. This is where you see some of the free courses. And so some of those free courses, you can go to my YouTube channel and you can see the playlist. And you can see here's the 3 courses on the immune system, and here's the 3 courses on whatever. Okay, so there's no cost for this. It's your time and it's your engagement, and it's just education, and that's a great place to be, right? Freebie stuff. There's another level which is also education, but it's in a structure. So you're still learning, but then you're taking that learning and you're applying it in sort of a do it yourself, if you will, a DIY. And so this is something I'm really excited about. I just launched a couple of days ago this app called Adaptive Capacity Coach. You can see the website right here, studio.com/Sean Talbott. If you go there, you're going to see, I'm going to click, you're going to see something like this. So this Adaptive Capacity Coach is personalized daily guidance. So what I've spent months now teaching this AI all my stuff, all my videos, all my books, all like textbooks, popular books, articles I've written, etc. And it's scary in a good way, scary how it can take an individual client, learn what they need to get in terms of their primary limiter, the stuff that I've been talking about, and then serve up exactly from my 30-year library what that person needs. So like it'll say like here's a video to watch and here's something to read and here's a practice to do and let's get you on the 30 plant challenge and let's have you reflect on, all these things that you did and okay, I'll see you tomorrow, right? So you can choose are you doing this for 5 minutes a day? Are you doing this for 30 minutes a day, right? Whatever works for you. And it's I was very skeptical about this when Studio contacted me to try to build this. And I have to say that I was wrong, right? It actually works really, really nicely. So you can do it quarterly, you can do it annually. They're running a special right now. It's like it just launched the other day. When did it launch? It launched on Tuesday, the 23rd. There is a 20% off up until July 3rd. So if you go here, studio.com/Sean Talbott, you can check it out, see if it's something that you're interested in. Pretty affordable, but it's a self-paced sort of a thing. So that'll resonate with some people. The other self-paced thing that we have is our mental fitness community. This is $300 for lifetime access. And this is an online community. It's videos like this, but then with the slides and with the like the background work. Um, I mentioned just a few minutes ago, I posted something about taking care of your brain, Mediterranean diet, microbiome, ultra processed foods, like that whole thing, where I unpacked two really nice research articles that just came out. And so that kind of stuff is in the mental fitness community. And we, post things up in there on a regular basis. We have live calls, at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. And that's, so some people do, one of these, some people do the other one, some people do both. You can even do things. I threw a bottle of Zenith in here. For some people, the first thing that they do is like, whew, okay, what can I take? What biotics can I take to just give me a little bit more bandwidth? And so, you'll take something like Zenith and your sleep will be a little bit better because your stress is a little bit lower, or your brain fog lifts, or your resilience is better, or your mental acuity is sharpened, or something like that. So, like for some people, it's going to be a supplement. For some people, it's going to be an app. For some people, it's going to be engaging with other people who are, on the same sort of a journey. So those are there, and that's all pretty affordable. When you go to level 3, it gets a little more in depth. This is our certification program. So this is for people who really want to immerse themselves. These are the deep divers, right? The people who really want to get in there and understand what's under the hood, understand all the biochemistry. And this is a little bit of an undertaking, right? It's 16 hours of contact time. It's 11 modules. In order to unlock each module, you have to take a quiz to go to the next one, and then a quiz to go to the next one, and et cetera, et cetera. Some people do this in 2 weeks. Some people do it in 2 months. Some people do it in a year, right? Depending on, if you did one module a month, it would take you 11 months. So, totally self-paced. It's endorsed by 6 of the leading health organizations. You can see them all here: American College of Sports Medicine, National Association for Nutrition Professionals, etc. People who go through this program sometimes do it for themselves, right? Just to get as much information as possible. You get the mental fitness community along with this $12.99 tuition, but you also get an affiliate program if you want to start, representing the supplements and making a commission on them. You get access to open up your own professional supplement dispensary on Fullscript, on Mountain Health products, on TrueGen 3, on Designs for Health, on orthomolecular. Like there's a whole bunch of places that you can represent these really cutting edge health professional level of dietary supplements, and you can build a whole business around that if that's something that you're interested in doing. Some people want to improve themselves, which is great. And others want to do this, learn deeply enough so that they can go and they can help others. And those others might be clients that you take on. Those others might be family members. Those others might be people in your community. Those others might be, if you're an influencer, that, come and see you for other things. Probably, I would say maybe half of our students just did it for themselves, and half are practitioners of some stripe, that you might be a dietitian that now has this certification as a mental wellness coach. You might be a chiropractor, and now you know all about the gut brain axis and things like that. So, and then the last level are people that work with me one on one. So this is like really intensive, where we're talking to each other, at least once a week. We're texting with each other. I've dropped you into the mental fitness community, and we're doing group things like that. So it could be VIP consulting. I come at it from the perspective of a scientist, right? I'm really trying to understand what is working for you and what is not working for you at the biochemical level. So there's a big range in how much this might cost somebody. I like people to do a 3-month program with me because that's how long it really takes to reset the signaling across your gut brain axis. We can help you feel better in certain ways very, very quickly, a couple of days, a couple of weeks, but the real meat of it is about a 3-month intervention. And that could be $1,000, could be $5,000. It could be, if you're somebody who wants to do a lot of biochemical testing, it could be a lot more than that, right? Because some of this biochemical testing, especially the microbiome stuff, is very expensive. So, like I said, that's not the first place that I go with people, but it's available for people who want that. We're also doing a retreat in September. We do these periodically here at Three Waves. Our next one is September 17th to the 20th. And if you're interested in that, we're doing a special up until July 31st, where it's $9.99. It's super, super cheap for everything that you get. It's all your meals, it's all the interventions, it's all the seminars, it's the experiences. We're gonna go whale watching, we're gonna do a sound bath, we're gonna do all kinds of cool things. So, you can find information about that. You can find information about that on my blog at DocTalbott. You can see it on any of my social channels. If you're interested, get in touch. Okay, so this is all fully customized stuff to get down to your specific biochemistry, and it's all back to this, right? I started with this at the beginning. I did the whole last seminar last week about the Super 7 was all about identifying your primary limiter, because all of these things, some of which we've talked about tonight, we talked about inflammation, we talked about sleep quality, we talked about blood sugar stability, we talked about stress and cortisol, and then there's a few others that I didn't talk about just for time. When we can identify which of those things is your primary limiter, then we can focus on that. And once we focus on that, we can start to see some traction, if you will. And once we see traction there, let's see it's inflammation. That traction with inflammation might also lead to a benefit with your leaky gut, and that will lead to a benefit with your sleep quality, and that will lead to a benefit with your blood sugar stability, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to figure out where to start, and that's the moral of the story, I guess. Like, you have to start somewhere. Don't start with a dozen things. Start with one or two things and make some progress there, and then you step off from there. Figure out your primary limiter. As you see benefits there, that's going to improve your adaptive capacity. Once your adaptive capacity or your resilience improves, then you start to see these symptoms improve. So your mood comes back, your motivation comes back, your metabolism normalizes, etc. And that's where the performance comes in. That's where, when I say level up, that's what I mean. That new level of mental and physical performance, when somebody says, oh, I feel better, or I at least don't feel as bad as I did before, right? That kind of, person who has gone to a new level of performance, that's going to be a little bit different for everybody. Like, my level of performance is different from what your level of performance is, right? So that's what I want to talk about tonight, right? Tired and wired is a big problem for so many people, and I think the biggest glaring issue is that so many people are just resigned to the fact that, I guess this is how it is. I guess I'm just going to be tired and wired, whether you use those languages or not, right? Sometimes people say, like in positive psychology, sometimes we call it languishing. I used the word burnout just a little while ago. If it's athletes, we say that they're overtrained or they're overreaching. There's all kinds of ways that we describe it. The average person is just going to say, I feel crummy. I feel kind of old. I feel blah. That isn't how it's supposed to be, right? So I've got all these resources here. for people to jump in on at whatever level, right? There's free stuff, there's paid stuff, there's premium stuff, there's retreats. I would love for any of you who are watching right now to come and join me for 3 days in September. It's New England is beautiful in September. It's probably the best time because most of the tourists have gone, and we'll have the beach to ourselves, and the whale watch boat won't be as crowded, and the restaurants will be, easier to get into, and it'll still be sunny, and the water will be warmer. So, anyway, here's all the places you can reach out to me, especially this one. I put YouTube in red here. There's lots of great resources there, including this video is going to be up there, posted about, before this time tomorrow. So just check it out and share it around with people, and just try to get as many people as you can aware that there's some solutions, some very effective natural solutions. They're going to work, virtually 100% across the board. Okay, so thanks a lot for joining me tonight, you guys. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.